This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Hi friends, I'm Carrie Jo, and this is Holy Chuckles Podcast. This is a space for honest faith, lived experiences, and shining a light in the places we've learned to hide. I'm not here to explain faith. I'm here to live it out loud. So take a breath and let's make room for what's real. Welcome back to Holy Chuckles Podcast. I'm really glad you're here. Today, I'm starting in on 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 2. One night, Eli, whose eyes were becoming so weak that he could barely see, was lying down in his usual place. So I learned that Eli died around the age of 98. Think about that. Your whole life, you have sight. At the end of your life, your sight starts to dim where you can't see things like you used to. When you can't see things like you used to, your life changes. Eli couldn't just get up and go do all the things that he did before because he couldn't see. He had to have assistance. That's where I'm at in my life right now. No, my physical vision hasn't dimmed. I can still see just fine as long as I have my glasses on. But I'm in the same place Eli was in when his eyes were weak and he couldn't see like he had seen before, because I'm not seeing things as I used to see them. I'm not doing things as I used to do them. And that's with everything in my life. It's not one specific. It's every single thing. Let me tell you, when you change your life, it is frustrating. It is emotionally taxing. And sometimes I want to throw my hands up and say, I'm done with this. All right, God, I tried it. And I went further than I ever have when I've decided to change my life. But this time it's different for me because, man, I'm too far in. I have really developed this relationship with God, developed this relationship with myself. And I enjoy these relationships. I enjoy these relationships so much that I'm willing to give up anything and everything to continue the growth of these relationships. And I'm willing to go through the frustration of the growth. I didn't realize in my past that I wasn't growing. I was just existing. I don't even know if I was existing. I sure know that I wasn't living. I'm going to say I was just breathing, just going through the motions. Because now I understand. I see what living is. I see what growth is. And growth is not easy. Even in the small things, I'm growing. But in this growth, it's very taxing. And sometimes the frustration is overwhelming. I'm realizing that I'm reparenting myself. And sometimes I'm like a child. When God says, no, we're not doing it that way, or God says, hey, we can't do it the way that we used to do it. And I need you to understand. That's what these verses are teaching me. How to live my life better than before. How to grow within myself. And when God says sometimes we can't do it that way, you're trying to do it the old way. And I get so frustrated. Because if I could do it my old way, I could just do it quickly and move on. But growing is not doing things quickly and moving on. Growing is understanding why the old way didn't work, why the old way kept me in fight or flight, why the old way kept my nervous system activated. God says we're doing it in a new way, and it's not going to be easy. When I can't just figure it out and move past and go to the next one, kind of like when I was in verse 36 for 88 weeks is what it felt like, because I couldn't just get it and move on. It was something that I had to grow within, and growing sometimes takes time. When something takes time, I get frustrated because I want to get it and move on. That's how I've always been. I've been so good in my professional life because I can understand something. Show me once, I have it. Now I can move on to the next thing. Tell me once, I can grasp it and move on to the next thing. But growing as a person, growing in my alignment with myself and with God is not that easy. It's not as easy as learning a new task and picking it up and moving on. I get frustrated. And when I get frustrated, I get emotional. I'm learning that is okay. And I'm learning to be in those emotions, whatever it may be. If I'm frustrated, I'm learning just to accept the frustration right where it's at and work through it, not stuff it down or throw it aside like it's not important. If the frustration makes me cry, I'm learning just cry. Let it out. Don't stuff it down. Just let it out. Whatever that emotion is, just be in it for the moments that it's there. Experience it. Let it flow through me. Because when I do that, then I can move on. In my past, when I would get emotional, I would walk away and I would breathe and I wouldn't let myself feel the emotions. And that was me just stuffing one emotion down after the other, to the point where it didn't even matter what emotion. I couldn't even feel it anymore. I just learned to accept and move on. When I did that and I stuffed all those emotions down, I couldn't even have the good emotions. I couldn't even experience joy, happiness, excitement. I remember I would tell my significant others, I don't like surprises. What I didn't understand then that I understand now is that I didn't like surprises because I wouldn't be able to give them the expression that they would want because I didn't know how to feel. And I didn't know how to feel because I always stuffed everything down. I was always smiley, laughy, joking, if we want to call it quote unquote happy, but those weren't real emotions. I was doing what I was supposed to be doing in that moment. I wore that mask. Today, I'm feeling every emotion that I have. I'm also letting those emotions that I stuffed all the way down inside me, all of them are coming up to the surface. So there are some days I just cry and I don't even know why I'm crying. There are some days that I'm so frustrated and I have no reasoning behind it. It's my nervous system, my body releasing all these emotions that I just stuffed down. Stuffing those down did nothing for me. It may have allowed me not to cry in front of someone, be upset in front of someone, but it also took away my joy, my happiness, all the good things that comes with emotions. I'm learning I can't do things the way that I used to do them. And believe me, I try. I try a lot until God reminds me your old ways don't work in your new life and you have to let them go. When you've been doing things the same way for all these years, I mean, I'm 50 now. Now you have to change them. It's very taxing. It's taxing on your physical, your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, everything. But changing and learning how to do things a new way is non-negotiable in this new life. I can't do things my old way. Doesn't work. My living situation, it being mismatched to who I am, but I have to find my peace within it. That was one way I had to change. I'm now working. God blessed me with a job. Last week was my first week. My first day was really rough. I was talking to a friend and I said, how did I used to do the job that I had? Because if I'm really being honest, the job that I had, I probably did the job of 3 to 4 people. That's how many hours I worked, but also that's how much I took on. Not only did I do a lot in my professional life, but I was taking on stuff in my personal life. Just being at this new job for the first day, orientation and a few meetings. By the end of the day, I was worn out. I was so overstimulated and overwhelmed. It made me realize how tight my nervous system was wound up, how I stayed with my nervous system activated all this time. I stayed in fight or flight. Just that first day alone allowed me to see how much work that I put into myself. I've never put this much work into myself. All I've done in my past is keep going. Another thing that I learned last week is that I can't do in this job what I used to do in my old job. I'm not that person anymore. Where I could handle 52 tasks at one time. That's not me anymore. That's not how I operate. I also realized that my identity is not in this job, where before, I'm going to say a good 80% of my identity was in the position that I held. And that's not me right now. That's not me in this job. I'm appreciative of it. I'm grateful. God led me to it. But this job is not who I am. I can give it the hours that it requires, but it can't have my identity. I also learned how to handle when I don't agree with something. Before, I would just blow up. Again, stuffing down emotions. I became like a Coke bottle. When I'd had enough, I would blow up. This time, I spoke up, but I spoke up in a way that didn't take me out of alignment from myself and from God. Even in the job that I'm in, maybe where it doesn't match me, I'm learning to find my place inside a system that's not matching who I am and be okay within that system. Isn't that the world for me? Finding my place in systems that do not match me, whether it be work systems, friend systems, living systems. We're in this world and it's made up of different systems. And sometimes the systems match us and sometimes the systems don't. When they match us, great. We live in harmony. Everything is aligned. But more than not, we're probably going to be in systems that don't match us. And that's why it's so important to learn how to live in that system and not create more chaos. Before in my life, when I would just stuff my emotions down and move forward and keep going, stay in that fight or flight, just do what needed to be done. Yes, I was living in the system, but the system still didn't match me. I was just robotically making it work for me. And I'm not willing to do that anymore. I have to live inside these systems, but I can find ways to be me and exist inside the systems that don't match me. I don't have to be an asshole while I'm doing it. That's another thing. While I was in my old life, living in the systems that I was in, most of the time I was an asshole. Most of the time I didn't feel good about myself. Now, yes, still living in systems that may not match me, but I'm learning how to exist in them and stay aligned with myself and with God. When I'm aligned and centered, nothing inside that system bothers me. Before, it would irritate me to no end. That's why I was an asshole. The verse says, one night Eli's whose eyes were becoming so weak and he could barely see. Again, Eli had to change everything he did because he could barely see. And in my life right now, I'm changing everything that I'm doing. I've been changing everything that I'm doing. I'm shifting away from my old way of seeing things. And I'm changing them even in the smallest of things. I moved north of where I used to live. And where I used to live was a good 35 minutes away from my dentist. I love this dentist. She is so awesome. I love her because I hate going to the dentist and she makes me feel so comfortable. And also, she knows the issues that I have with dentists. But now, if I want to go to her, it's going to be like an hour and 15-minute drive. I was already planning on making an appointment and taking the journey over there. And God said, we can't do that anymore. That's not where you are in your life anymore. We're not taking an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and a half, however long it takes, because that's not where we are. That's the old place. That's where we were. You got to find someone new. And I was like, God, I don't want to find someone new. I have to go in, explain the issues that I have with dentists, feel them out, see if it's going to work, see if how they do things matches how I do things. I don't want to do all that. And God said, that's life. If you wanted to stay in your old life, then you should have stayed in your old life. But you asked for change. You asked to be anew. And everything in your life changes. And I know there are people out there that says, well, I changed and I still have the same dentist. Yeah, that may be true for you, but you and I are not the same. And in my life, where I have controlled everything and kept myself in a small box, if I could keep everything the same, then I never had to think outside that box. I never had to have emotions that I didn't want to have. So in my life, in my changes, in my becoming anew, God is changing everything, and I have to change everything. I can't stay in being comfortable because my comfortability keeps me small. That may not be the same for you, and that's okay. But for me, I'm changing everything. I'm changing the place that I live, how I live, the place that I work, how I work, the place that I go to the dentist, how I exist in the systems that I'm in. My changes are requiring me to change everything about myself. I've even had to find a new way to do this podcast because I have roommates. So there's noises that I didn't have before. So I'm having to find new ways to do this podcast with the noises that are in this system where I am at. And although some days I get frustrated with it, because why can't things just be quiet? I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned I'm a type of person that has auditory sensitivity. I have a low tolerance for auditory disruption. In my auditory sensitivity, my brain notices sounds more easily. My brain prefers clean, controlled sound. I am highly attuned to sound. But had I not been here in this system where there are a lot of sounds, I would have never understood that about myself. So me making a place in a system that doesn't match me also allowed me to understand and learn something about myself. When I was a kid, my mom didn't really care for us listening to secular music, even though I did. I had a brother that was 13 years older. I would steal his Van Halen tapes, his Quiet Riot tapes. She did allow worship music. And I remember one of my favorite songs was A Place in This World by Michael W. Smith. Back then, I felt connected to that song. I understand now because right here where I'm at is I'm finding a place in this world. I'm finding a place in a world that doesn't match who I am. And that's okay, because that's what we're all doing. Because this world is never going to match exactly who each one of us is, because we're so different and God made us that way. And it's our differences that should be drawing us together, not tearing us apart. As I'm learning and growing in these systems that I am in, I'm also learning how to stay aligned with myself and with God as I make my place in a world that will never match me, but a world that needs me, a world that needs every single one of us, as different as we are, to make God's tapestry. God's artwork requires every single one of us, and every single one of us has a place in this world.